Hey everybody, welcome back to What Brings You In. Ryan and Carrie here. Today we're going to be talking all about long distance relationships. But first, you had Unorthodox.
I had Unorthodox. We were talking about what shows to watch now that we're at home so much.
Yeah.
So I've just recently watched Unorthodox, which was great. It's about Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn and the story of one young lady that leaves her marriage and leaves the community and runs to Berlin. And it's really good. Like culture-wise, I learned so much, right? Like just how this works. Yeah. But it's really interesting because you see this woman journeying into becoming the person she wants to be. So that was really good. So It's really different from 100 Humans. It's what you were talking about.
Yeah, we were also talking about 100 Humans, the show where they take a scattering of 100 people, representative of the American population, all ages, backgrounds, education levels, and they enact psychological experiments on them to find out the answers to burning questions like, how does your level of attractiveness affect your sentencing in jury trials?
Or sperm count when you dance.
Sperm count when you're a good dancer. Like, do sexy male dancers have
better
higher sperm counts?
Yeah.
So these are essential answers at this dark
really
time in our history. The attractiveness one, though, with the jury, like we both said, we were both aware of the research. By the way,
the halo effect, right?
You are pretty screwed if you're ugly and you go to trial.
Yeah, that's so sad, though. It's
of course it is. That jury, I would never want to go to a trial. Think about the idea. Think about random people, okay? And think about
my fate.
Half will be about average intelligence, half will be less. That's a little bit scary to me. I mean, in a small sample, maybe there's not enough to be truly representative, and you just get like 10 really brilliant people, or you get 10 people who hate whatever gender or race you are. Like you just can't account for it.
No,
and
it's scary.
Your fate being in their hands
of those people,
rather than somebody who's trained to be impartial and puts their biases aside and is aware of all these things, has gone through tons of education and training. And so the jurors were basically giving people who are good looking like half the sentences.
It was insane. The last one, the blonde girl, do you remember that one?
The mother, right?
So it was a mother. It's all like this is all makeup, right? No one actually committed these crimes. So it's a mother who left their child in a car with the windows closed. The child dies because the mother's inside a bar drinking her, right?
Yeah.
So for the ugly woman or the non-attractive woman, they give her 13 years.
And the reasoning is, because you can see it, the way they look at her and they stereotype her as being irresponsible, selfish, evil. How could you? Terrible,
menacing.
Mom,
she can do it again. She'll do it to another child if she has one. Like she's a menace to society.
She needs to be locked up.
Whereas the same crime, the same description, but she's blonde and pretty, they give her 3 years.
She was probably distressed. She's needed to get away.
No, and she's going to suffer with the pain of having
She's already dealing with a lot, guys. We gotta.
That's enough of a punishment for her. That's insane.
Yeah, just because of the way you look.
She looks different. Yeah.
So it goes the whole idea of privilege. Like some people are very resistant to that idea. Some people hear it and they roll their eyes and can't believe it's real.
But it's such a thing.
It is real, and that doesn't mean that
being attractive.
You aren't struggling. It doesn't mean that as a pretty person you don't have the same trials and tribulations in your life, the same difficulties and obstacles. But there are many situations in which you do have it easier.
Yeah.
People look at you, and because you're good looking, they assume that other traits are also favorable.
The halo effect.
Right. Halo effect is what it's called. That's the idea that you have one good quality means you have other good qualities, particularly when referring to physical attractiveness.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of other ones. Interestingly, there's one herd mentality episode.
I haven't seen that one.
Guess what proportion of people, what percentage, does something that is not in the benefit of themselves when instructed to by a figure of authority?
Oh, huge. 80?
It's the exact same as the Milgram Authority.
So 60.
66%. So it was pie yourself in the face.
Oh my God. Okay.
66% of people were like, sure,
bam,
and then just pied themselves in the face. The other third were like, wait, what the fuck?
Why am I
I'm not doing that.
There's no purpose to that.
But the figure got me. It's like 66 is bang on with the obedience to authority experiments. That's coming in a future episode. We're talking about a famous experiment in which 66% of people shocked a fellow human being to death. Obviously not really, but in the experiment they thought they were doing that.
Yeah, and they heard the yells and the screams and the cries.
Just because they've been asked to. They weren't threatened, coerced, or whatever. So it's pretty commonly accepted in widespread circles of psychology that, yes, this is pretty accurate. About 2/3 of people will do otherworldly things because somebody...
They've been instructed to by a figure of authority.
Wild stuff. So 100 Humans and Unorthodox.
Unorthodox, yeah.
Those are our off-topic recommendations for today.
While you're stuck at home.
While you're in quarantine, trying to live the life. And let's get on with the show.
You're listening to What Brings You In, a weekly series featuring psychology talk with therapists Ryan and Carrie. Have something to say? Want your question answered? Visit ryananswers.com/podcast to get in touch.
So long-distance relationships, we've both been in one.
Yes.
Or you've actually had more experience than I have. Yours have gone better than mine.
I married mine.
Yeah, she married hers. Mine cheated on me. I cheated back on her. It was like the most toxic, dysfunctional, worst thing. This was years ago, by the way. I was 19. But still. So in those situations, what would you look at? So even if you were really into somebody, how do you come to the conclusion of, yes, this is a good idea? From your experience, personally.
My experience. I think that I would say if letting them go is harder for me than to pull through in a long distance relationship. Because relationships in general take a lot of work, right? Sure. Long distance relationship take a particular kind of hard work to do. So if I'm willing to do that work because losing them or not having them in my life is more painful than that work, then you're going to choose your suffering.
Particular, you seemed like you had something in mind that was very specific.
Well, because long distance relationship, you take away the possibility of physical contact, and physical contact is very reassuring.
Sure,
a hug, a kiss, that they provide physical and emotional reassurance that you don't have necessarily easily in a long distance relationship.
I think that's another factor that I would throw in there. Just if I ever ran into that situation, would be like, how long are we talking? Here.
One of my really good friends, her husband was in the Navy and he had to leave for 6 months on a Navy trip.
Wow.
And when he came back, she's like, I don't know if I can handle him coming back just because I've made a life without him.
Yeah, well, 6 months too. I mean, that may not sound like very long, but consider 6 months. And without internet. And think about the last 6 months of your life and everything you've done.
Yeah. And without internet connection or without the capacity to reach out.
This was back in the day.
Yeah. Or just because he's on a boat, right? So not necessarily.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, military especially. I'm sure, especially if he's in like a submarine or something.
He didn't have access for long periods of time.
Not like you're gonna have like sub-to-surface Skype sessions or something.
No. So there is. I think each long distance relationship would have its criteria. If it doesn't end, when is the end in sight? Can I wait that long? Is that okay for me? Does that fulfill my needs?
So I think in summary, it's thinking about like, what are my needs? What do I need from a relationship? If I'm being like dead honest with myself.
Yes, dead honest.
Like no bullshit. No, I don't really want to let this go, so I'm going to lie to myself and
dead honest.
Say I want to do it, but dead honest. Can this meet my needs? Here are my needs in terms of interaction, calls or video calls or like seeing this person.
Yeah.
Can I do the duration by myself? Or do I want like a more constant companion around me? And then what are the boundaries too? That's something we haven't touched on.
Yeah, which is the third thing that I think long distance. When I say particular challenges in a long distance relationship, there's something that happened in all relationships, but they have a new meaning when you do it long distance. So boundaries, for example. So if you're living in the same city and you guys hang out every weekend, then really talking about where to go together, to spend Friday night, if we go to bars, if we go dancing, if we go hang out at a restaurant, if we go hang out at a friend's house, we generally tend to do that with our significant other.
Sure.
But when you're long distance, you tend to do that alone, right? So
or with your friends.
Or with your friends, right? So what's appropriate behavior? When do I feel like this boundary is being crossed? What boundaries are kind of blurry?
Okay, so let's say you set boundaries, but one party doesn't really agree to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes
which is another of the challenges of a long distance relationship. Trust is always important in any relationship, but trust in a long distance relationship has a new level, right? Because again, you have to trust them blindly. You can't like come in and surprise them. You can't check up on them. Well, you could, but it's harder if they're really far away.
I was just in the area. I just dropped by on a 7-hour flight,
Right. So it has those challenges of you have to have clear boundaries. You have to trust them very intensely. And then there has to be an emotional connection that will pull you through this, right? There has to be enough love for you to want to push through a long distance relationship.
So before you enter the long distance relationship, you quite literally sit down or like on a phone call, go point blank, we need to talk about boundaries. What's okay?
I did that with my husband when I went back to Chicago to finish up my degree and my schooling and stuff. And we sat down and said, okay, what is appropriate behavior for you and what's appropriate behavior for me? right? And thankfully, we kind of matched up. I think we had one issue that we disagreed on, which was around alcohol use.
It's a common one.
It's a common one. So, and then once we decided, we both said, okay, so if any of this is breached, we have to tell each other. So,
and that's the tricky part, isn't it? Because as you drift, you feel less responsibility to people, and all of a sudden it's like, well, it's been 3 weeks or whatever, they're gone, they're not going to know, it's not going to hurt them.
What I found is that you get used to missing them, so you kind of develop a life without them. So then you doubt, okay, how much do I love him if I'm pretty happy without him, right? So that's why I say that there has to be an emotional intensity that will even help you rationalize that. Like, it's okay that I'm not missing. I couldn't survive if I missed him that intensely for so long. I need to be able to have a life without him, but my life would be much better with him.
That's another thing that kind of brings a question to mind is how many people, if they were to be away from their spouse, would develop that quickly? I think a lot of people would.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like if...
We're adaptive. Human beings adapt.
Pretty quick. I mean, think about any relationship that you've been in, whether it was a breakup or just a break, some time apart. Think about how quickly you fall into your own rhythm and you go, oh, this isn't so bad. This is actually kind of good. I can just do whatever I want.
I can handle it. I'm going to make it.
So there's maybe this false sense that feeling that means that you don't love the person as much, or you might doubt your feelings. I think, though, that's just a normal process. I think everybody
and I actually think it's a compliment. I don't want someone to want me in their life just
like out of need.
I want them to want me in their life, right? I had a great professor who said that we kind of walk through life and there's 2 ways we can do this, right? We can owe tons of money, and you walk around and you owe tons of money to the bank, right? And then you find $100 bill. So, okay, I can pay some of that off. I feel more at ease. Okay, there's other people that don't owe any money. They even have money in the bank. Then they walk around and they find $100. I just have more money. I have more things I can spend it on. I get excited about it because it's a pleasure I didn't see coming, right? So I think that sometimes happens in a relationship too. If I'm not comfortable within myself, if I'm not in love with my own life, if I'm not in love with who I am as a person, then someone can come and get me out of debt. But that's it. I need that person to get me out of debt. Like I'm kind of finding my way with this person.
That becomes like self-medicating. Rather, I would say that is not a true relationship in the technical sense of the word. That is a combination of relationship and like coping, like codependency. I need this person for me to feel good. That's what.
To feel valuable, to feel worthy, right?
Like if I don't have this person.
Whereas if my life is fulfilled and I can have a successful life without this person, then you just come in and we just like triple our happiness. Having that sense of complement rather than complete. So I think those are like one of the biggest challenges: boundaries, having this intense connection, and then working to keep that intense connection, and discussing it openly. And then I think another thing in long distance relationships, especially in this current situation, is speaking up to our needs. So now that I'm stuck at home and I don't have that reassurance of the hug on Friday nights because you're stuck at home, okay, I might need you to send me texts saying that you miss me. I need you to do video chats with me. I need you to reassure me that we're going to make it out of this. And to be comfortable in voicing those needs, because in long distance relationships, we don't have this like emotional, I don't know if you have this happen, like when you walk into a room, you kind of sense the room, you see if it's like tense, like right? So that happens in relationships too. If I am next to my partner and I really need something, or I'm feeling sad, without saying anything, this person can probably get a vibe from me. So if you're in a long distance relationship, no vibes. No vibes. You need to say it. You need to be able to vocalize it and ask for what you need. So especially when everything is so uncertain, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of people, especially those who don't have those kind of communication skills, they really rely on that, and they feel like you should just know. You should just get me. You should just know what I want. And if you don't, well, maybe you don't love me enough. They equate like a misunderstanding of their own needs as somebody not being compatible with them. Nobody's going to be right for you out of the box. So it's like, I mean, from an analogy from a male point of view, it's like getting a suit. You can get a really nice suit that fits you somewhat, but you're always going to have to get it tailored to make it fit properly. you can get a bespoke suit maybe, but unfortunately we can't design humans. So that's not going to happen. So you're going to have to find somebody who is mostly good for you and then do some work after that, both ways.
And constantly. It's not like you do the work the first year
complete.
and then it's like, we're set for life, right? Like couples that have been married 50 years will have to have conversation of what they need. Situations will change. There'll be empty nesters and they'll be retired and maybe new needs come up. I need to spend more time with you. I don't want you going off all the time because now I'm left alone. I don't have my job. I don't have the kids. Like
So if you have a partner, this I think is probably speaking more to women that are listening. If your partner is not receptive to these types of conversations and makes you feel like you're being needy or crazy or that you're being unreasonable or dramatic, not at all.
Not at all.
It's very permissible and acceptable and normal and okay and acceptable to just say, this is what I need.
I need you to do this.
I need you to do X, Y, or Z. That's like a totally legitimate conversation.
And why? Not because it makes me happy, but because it makes our relationship more healthy, because it makes our relationship better. It makes us be closer together.
And let's talk about the flip side. So this is probably going more to the guys. If your partner is asking you things, you can sometimes feel like it's controlling. So we often hear the expectations from a partner saying, I need this, I need that, this is what I want from you. It's like, why do you have to be so demanding? Why can't I ever do anything right? And you can feel that.
I'm not enough. You have to ask for more.
Yeah. Well, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, well, you can leave.
Yeah.
There's this very kind of hostile take. People asking for their needs isn't a criticism. It's not saying you're not enough. It's
generally that they want more of you, not from you, but of you.
That's a good framing. I like that. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's saying that I like you so much.
I want to hang out more.
This is what I want.
I want you to tell me that you think I'm pretty.
And it's okay. So if you get that feeling though, here's how to respond to it. Actually, let's start with how not to respond. So how not to respond is the stuff I just said. Anger, like, are you kidding me?
Defense.
No matter what, I can't ever do enough for you, or you always want more. That's going to cause a fight. What you can do is talk about why it bothers you. So maybe you go, well, I don't know, it seems like a lot, and maybe that's a bit scary for me. I feel like we're moving too fast. Or I feel like that's going to be really restrictive to my life. I feel like I'm not going to be able to go do the things I want to do and relax when I'm worried about all this stuff. Yeah. Then you can talk about it. You can have a conversation.
I've already been doing that. So now when you ask me, are you not seeing everything I've been doing?
I feel like you're discounting the stuff I do and that I'm not
Can you acknowledge the things I have done?
So being very direct rather than letting your emotions speak, talking about what's underneath those, what you often hear, where does that emotion live or where does it come from? That's how you answer that kind of a question is, well, I feel like I'm not going to be able to go out with my friends because you don't want me to drink, and I don't think I should have to give up my friendships because we're in a long distance relationship. And maybe that's not what the person meant and they can clarify, or maybe they just have different boundaries than you and you find out you're not compatible. But either way, it's better than just having a blowout and not resolving anything.
Yeah, it's better to be surprised by it, right? It's better to acknowledge reality than to deny it. Right?
It's tough to do. It's tough to have those conversations, but I actually think it's tougher not to.
I think so too, because then you feel during because you're unsatisfied, and then it blows out, and you feel when it blows out, and then you feel guilty because you probably said it in a bad way. So you have like 3 different emotional situations that are very taxing, whereas one really bad conversation. So boundary conversation, need conversation, say what you need, say what you find that isn't compatible with how you view a relationship, a committed relationship, an intense emotion. Like if you're going to do this work, you have to be intensely into this person, right? To do the work, right?
Yeah, and it's okay not to be.
It's okay, and it's fine not to be.
I don't think that this is going to work.
It's fine. It doesn't make you a bad person.
And just because you commit, unless you've made like a marriage, like a lifetime commitment, you're allowed to have conversations about not being as into the relationship. You can say, I thought that this was going to be good. I thought that I could do this.
But I can't.
But I don't think that I can. I'm sorry.
Or I don't want to.
Or or even just, it's not even, they might say, well, yes, you can. You just don't want to. And maybe you go like,
I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to.
And that's okay
I'm sorry.
too.
And some people will feel pressured by that too. So that's another kind of flag. There's a few flags we've been mentioning that you're not compatible. Is if somebody's pressuring you, going like, well, you can do it. Yeah. You can do it. You don't have to do that. And they're pressuring you to let go of your own boundaries and needs.
That's not good. But it also has great pros, right? I find that long distance relationship can have the challenge and have difficult moments.
I'm curious about the pros,
but
because
it also
naturally
has a lot of pros. Well, I think because we remove the stimulus of physical touch, then you have space, time to develop more of an emotional intimacy. So really deep conversations, that trust that this person has your back, even though they're thousands of miles away. examples of how they let go of things that they found important or they wanted to do in their life because they rather spend it with you. All the people that they're not picking that could be easier because of you, right? So there's a lot of proof of how much this person loves you. And then there's space and time and conversations to have that you probably would get distracted if I was in the same room with the person.
How do you mean?
Well, because we'd probably develop into a physical kind of relationship, right? So if I'm talking about something of how much I love this person, then we'd probably start kissing, or we'd probably start hugging.
I
right?
see what you mean.
And that isn't a possibility in a long distance relationship. So what you can just do is kind of sit in those feelings and express them and hold on to them and share it and have that without the necessity of
like developing into a physical intimacy.
Yeah. So you get more intimate emotional knowledge, I think, just because you have more time.
See, these are good things because I don't have a lot of experience as an adult in a long distance relationship. So I've never experienced those moments myself. Yeah. I've never had to go through that. And I haven't really dealt with it a lot clinically either. Like, because I mean, couples who come in to see you typically do so face to face. So they generally live together. So it's not something I see a lot of. It's interesting to hear these perspectives. If it's not too personal, did JD feel the same way? Did he say some of the same things?
I think we were in a long distance relationship for 4 years while I was finishing all my education, and it was short lived because the longest we did was 6 months.
That's a long time. 6 months. You guys must have been like dying to see each other.
Yeah, which is another.
Was it like epically running slow motion?
It was the O'Hare Airport, and it was like beautiful.
The O'Hare Airport. I went there on a layover to Hawaii. It smells like baseball, like hot dogs and popcorn.
It just smells like a lot of food. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were together, it's half and half, right? Because it's like this idealized vacation honeymoon phase, just because you haven't seen this person in so long, you've kind of idealized them in your head. So even though you're so deep in, you get like this, oh my God, I can't wait to see. Oh yeah, I can't wait to see. And then you see them and it's great, but then life happens, right? So then, oh wait, we're going to fight, but we only have 3 weeks left to see each other. Why are we going to fight? So it brings in new intensity into the relationship that probably isn't there if we always live there at the same time. And it also makes you check your way of idealizing the person, right? So I would remember and imagine things would be a certain way in my head when I was in Chicago, and then I'd go back home and things wouldn't go exactly like I imagined in my head that they would go. So then I have to check my perception, right? I have to be like, okay, Carrie, you can't imagine this guy to literally just not work for 2 weeks to hang out with you. You can't imagine him making you breakfast every morning. Like, that's not going to happen, right? And I think that's prepared me even for later in a relationship, right? Now that we're married and we're living in the same country, I still have to check my
that's a good point though too, of adjusting your expectations. Yeah. A lot of people who are single, especially later into life, they have expectations that are wild. Like there's I think he calls himself a dating coach. His name is Evan Mark Katz. I met him in Toronto. Really cool guy, really knowledgeable. And he did this kind of seminar. Okay. And he had 100 guys in the crowd. And he had a woman with her expectations, like must be at least 6 feet tall, must have at least like a master's degree, must make at least $100,000. Oh my God. Slowly the men are sitting down. 2 people left?
Maybe not even 2.
0. Yeah. At the end there was 0. And he was going, well, this is why you can't find somebody. Look at this. We have 100 good looking, well put together guys who are driven. Like they're all quality. Yeah, they're all it wasn't like any deadbeats or anything. But none of them measured up. Yeah. So to speak. So expectations are important. You have to be able to be honest with yourself and be straight and go, is this person letting me down, or is it impossible for them? Have I just made it too difficult because I'm expecting
or always every day or whatever it is. Always and forever. Always has to be attentive. Always listens to what I say. Always can understands me. There's no way anyone's gonna. I can't do that, right? Like maybe even hold yourself up to the same expectations you have, and maybe see if you could fulfill them, right? And see if that helps you be more realistic of those expectations. So it does have its pros. This emotional connection is really intense. The time you spend together has a new level of intensity. You have a real test of how much you're picking each other and how much you're choosing each other and how committed you are to each other. And then when you're together, that plays out also.
Did you see the video? There's a guy, he saw a woman on a rooftop across from him. And so he took his drone and he put his phone number on the drone and he flew it over to her. And she texted him, hey, it's the girl from the roof. And then he like kept the videos of them doing these dates. They set up they each did half of a dinner table.
Oh, see, that's so cute.
And put the little like a Skype or whatever app they were using.
Yeah.
And they did a date. And so when you put the screen side by side, it looks like
they're in the same place.
They're in the same place doing this.
Well, that's another tip that helped me a ton in our relationship when we were long distance is that we did dates. But like legit dates. Like we would both,
not just like, hey, what's up?
No. Like I would dress up, he would dress up. Cool. We decide if we were going to cook something, we cook the same thing and eat it together at the table. If we were going to watch a movie, watch the same movie. We would go out to try different restaurants. So like, okay, both of us find a steakhouse, and we'd go to the restaurant. And I would put my phone, and I would have dinner.
That's so cool.
I would have a date with him.
So you guys did basically the same thing.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did that, and it was every Friday. Right, so even now every Friday night we would do something like that.
My wife and I do Fridays as well. That's my day. Yeah, that's why when I tell you I'm off Fridays, no matter what.
Yeah, me too. That's why
you gotta have. In my experience, you have to have at least one day where you prioritize your spouse, and not as like your co-parent or your co-housemate or whatever, but strictly for your wife or husband or whatever your spouse
or your partner or whatever.
But you treat it like this is a day for dating. Get sitters for the kids, have family come over, do whatever you can do.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's why date night has been around for so long.
You know, it's funny, even with my friends, like later tonight, we have a poker tournament and we're doing it same thing. It's just all online. We have like video chats more now. And even my buddy, we watch the same sport and so I'm like, dude, there's this room. You go on this website and you kind of put the video on and you can just have a bunch of people watching the same game together, or like when the fights are on, because you can't get together and watch fights right now. Obviously you just throw the fights on and you can just all sit and
I didn't know that happened. I have House Party, which is a lot of people.
Tons of people are on House Party.
Tons of people
now.
can do that.
Yeah, it's like you said, we adapt quick. How long did that take? It was like 4 days into the
school's going to be online now.
Yeah,
everything's going to be.
It's happening quick. I would say like 4 days into the queue, we all started like just figuring it out. Yeah, people like, how do we hang out? How
resourceful we are. Yeah,
and we got to do something, and bam, there you go. Yeah. So to recap, think about before you get started. Do I have enough connection? Is it worth it to me to do this?
Is there an intense emotion with this person? Do I share this intense emotion with this person?
What are my needs? What needs are deal breakers? Which ones can be flexible?
Yep.
And we can maybe compromise on at a distance? How often do I need to see this person? How much interaction do I need from them? Can we do dates, and will that really make me okay?
Yeah.
And
what boundaries do I need to be in place?
Boundaries is a big one. What am I okay with in terms of what they do, not what we do as a couple, but what is okay for me to do, what's okay for them to do. Yeah. What if we don't agree? How do we
handle
process that? Having a conversation about how to reach a compromise, or maybe you can't. Maybe it's deal breakers and you're not able to do it.
That's okay.
Maybe you even start it and realize it's not for me.
I couldn't handle it.
I thought it was, and then I like the pros and cons, the idea that you have certain things that you wouldn't experience in person, but that you can, because like you said, certain avenues are cut off. Like you can't have the physical contact. So it's like you hear about when people lose a sense, other senses sharpen.
Exactly. That's a wonderful metaphor. So that's what happens in long distance relationship with emotional intimacy. Like you will talk so much more about so much in depth that you wouldn't in the physical presence of the person.
I find even with this Corona stuff, me and Jasmine, my wife, we talk about things more. We have more random, like even at breakfast today, we were just talking about, we were talking about like, what did people cook or eat before there was fire? And did they eat raw meat? And then we concluded that there was probably higher rates of parasitic deaths, and that went away after fire. And now I'm going to Google that later and probably go back and be like, you know what? We were totally right.
Yeah.
We're geniuses. But if you think we have missed anything about long distance relationships,
or if you have any questions, if you're in one, let us know.
If you have any experiences you want to share or anything like that, RyanAnswers.com/podcast. Feel free to send it in. We are back every Thursday, Carrie and I. Anything else that you wanted to add?
No. Good luck for those people that are in long distance relationship or that are cooped up in their homes with their partner.
Yeah,
right? That's also another challenge.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next Thursday.